Speaking of things that are mad, it would make me mad, but also make me happy at the same time. I wouldn't quite know how to take it. How about this rumor of the Giants with the potential trade with the Dallas Cowboys? And this is not any sources saying they're hearing this out of Dallas or, out of New York. This is a writer who's talking about this. Daniel Alameda out of the Sporting News. He's predicting point blank this is a trade that will happen. He's not saying this might work. He's saying I think this is going to happen. The Cowboys would receive pick number 3 from the Giants overall. The Giants would receive picks 12, 44, first round next year, third round next year. And then they're suggesting they would go ahead and get Shedeur Sanders. Alameda writes, trading for Sanders wouldn't spell the end of Prescott immediately, but it would give Prescott this season to prove they can go far in the playoffs, or a 2026 trade could be imminent. The Cowboys don't seem to have a full roster that can immediately compete with the Eagles or Commanders, so they should be looking towards the future. Interesting. I'm so mixed in this, Rob. You go first. I'm so mixed in this thing. It's not even funny. I'm going to put you in the spot.
I have a lot of mixed feelings because, one, any trades within our division that does benefit us to the most upfront, I don't want nothing to do with. That being said, if you don't think that Sanders or Ward are going to be dudes in this league, and this is a really bad draft class for quarterbacks, why not give a non-dude to your division rival for a long term and trade down and then add up your roster elsewhere? Because just like you just said, we don't have the roster to compete with the Commanders or Philadelphia either. At this point, we don't have a roster to compete with the Cowboys. So let's get the picks in, let's get the personnel in, and let's rebuild the team, because that should be our upfront most concern.
Yep.
So, and normally you rebuild around a quarterback, but once again, if you don't think Sanders awards that dude, don't reach and get him. If you could get Dart or Ewers later in rounds, go ahead and do it.
I mean,
and you could use some of these picks to do that.
I feel like in this scenario, you have to kind of take out the fact that it's Dallas for a second.
Yes.
Because I feel like that adds a whole lot of oh God, I'm going to do that. Because the risk is definitely there, because not just as a rival, it's a rival you paid twice a year. But I look at it and I go, okay, they take Shedeur Sanders in that scenario. We pick 12 overall. Let's say we get, I'm gonna say Mason Graham will probably be gone. I'm going to throw a guy like Will Johnson out there, who I think is better than pick 12, but I think he's going to stick to around that point. He's dropping a little bit lately for some reason. He could be gone. Who knows? We'll see. Let's say hypothetically we get him. Then we got pick 44, and we still got our second pick of the second round as well. Let's say we go ahead and get a defensive lineman and an offensive lineman. And now in the third round, we go get a guy like Quentin Ewers, like you mentioned, or Dylan Gabriel, or Will Howard, or one of those kind of guys. And you put him behind a guy, let's say hypothetically you already got Aaron Rodgers. You're fixing a lot of holes here. And you're going into next season with an extra first, an extra third, and a much better quarterback class.
Yeah.
You better be sure.
It's that crazy. Yeah. You have to be sure this is not your guy. And maybe it's not the worst, because if Shane and Dable do get fired, like we're thinking, new regime, new quarterback, let's go.
But it's like the fear has got to be like look how much the Giants get bashed for not picking Micah Parsons. Imagine how bad it'd be if it was Shedeur Sanders and he was a good player.
Yeah.
It'd be like Barkley going to the Eagles all over again. Because we could have had him.
Yeah.
That's what this situation could have been. And I feel like the Giants would never have the balls to do it because of that. Point blank. I don't think the Giants would ever have the balls to do it. But I'm telling you right now, I would make that decision. Is this a guy I want? Or is this a guy I don't think is good enough to lead this team? And if he's not, I'm moving on. And I'm getting rid of that. I'm making that trade in a freaking heartbeat.
100%.
Because if you don't think he's the guy, then there's no loss. If you think he's the guy, you better pick him no matter what. You could trade up to get him if you have to. If you think he's the guy, that's how important your opinion of this player matters. Get him if he's the guy. Don't get him if he's not. And if he's not and somebody else wants him and you get that kind of offer, hells yeah, you can still take him. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's a lot of stuff, guys. You know, if you look at who's available around the 12 range at that point, you know, you're going to have a guy like we said, Will Johnson's going to be right there at that point. You know, McMillan from Arizona. Do we go get a second top flight receiver at that point there? You know, do we get a guy like a Will Campbell or somebody like that to go ahead and play tackle, which allows Jermaine Illuminor now to go ahead and move inside the guard?
I was going to say, I think you'd spend a little more on that, a little more on the offensive line. You don't have
I hate over there. It scares me so much to have another offensive lineman from the first round.
I'm not saying from the first round, but I'm just saying, yeah.
Well, that's what he would be in this scenario, I'm saying, you know. But I mean, even if you can't, let's say hypothetically, if you don't think you can get a Mason Graham there, well, you can get a Walter Nolan. You know, like you can still get good players. You can get Kenneth Grant there. You know, like it's still options. And now you still have all these other players out there. That's the thing. You still have all these other options out there. You know, and because you're going to have all these extra picks. Like I said, to me, it's that cut and dry. And I'm not going to say if it's right or wrong, because for us to make that kind of call, Rob and I don't have that kind of info. We haven't sat there and looked him in the eye and had a conversation with him. We haven't tried to figure out things and do a job interview with him, so to speak, to find out if he's the guy or not. Like, I've done plenty of job interviews in my life, guys. Did 3 today. Like, I can sit there and talk to somebody and find out if they're meant for something or not. I can tell you a lot by having a conversation with somebody because I've had a lot of training to do that kind of stuff. I don't have that option with Sanders, so I can't make that call. I have to hope, as scary as it sounds, that I can trust Joe Schoen to make the right call. And not because I want to trust Joe Schoen, but because I kind of have to, because I've been forced into this situation by the Giants.
Yeah. Don't put that on spit butter jelly sandwich. Look the man in his eyes. Make sure, he knows what he's looking at.
It's definitely scary, but like I said, it's a high risk, high reward kind of move. It really is. And sometimes it works out. Like, there was plenty of people saying that we should have taken Justin Fields before we traded him. You know, the year we got Kadarius Toney. There's people saying that. Oh, well, Daniel Jones sucks. They should just go ahead and get Justin Fields themselves. I think that worked out well for us in a way. I mean, Toney sucks too, but that's a whole separate thing. Like, we're not regretting drafting Justin Fields, are we? Even though it's ironic we're talking about getting him as a free agent this year. I don't think people are like, oh, God, we should have taken Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And Sanders may have that kind of talent level. Different type of player, obviously, but he may be at that same kind of talent level because I'm telling you point blank, most years he would not be a top 3 pick. Most years he's a mid-first round pick.
Well, even last year's draft, I mean, granted, it was rich in quarterbacks. He was
last year's
round.
Draft, who knows?
Yeah.
Could be the 4th overall pick.
Yeah. Touche.
But yeah, like I said, you got to make a call. You got to make a call. And it's funny because we hear about potentials for trading the picks. That's not the first rumor I've heard. That's just the craziest one because it's with the Cowboys. But you also hear...
If you like that clip, then you will love the full episodes too. Find us on your favorite podcast app and look for us on all your favorite social media platforms.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you. Please subscribe.